Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Full Circle Podcast Show, special edition for the National Podcast Power Conference. I am Darryl E. McCullough, the same poet, along with the songstress, Carmen L. Miller.
Hey.
We are here with our friend, Rashone Bryant, a.k.a. African Caesar, who is the host of the Sneakerbox Podcast Show. What's going on, man?
I'm living. How you doing?
I'm glad.
I'm blessed.
See,
I'm blessed.
You know what?
No.
We already going there. I'm glad that you're here, Rashone. This is.
I came for you.
Thank you. Now that we're here doing the conference, there's going to be a lot of people that have questions about your success and about how it is that the sneaker box became such a phenomenon. Can you kind of go walk us through the process of how you started out?
All right. Well, we started out with. All right. Let me just start like this. I am the type of person where I see what exists, right? And I see what doesn't exist. And so I would much rather take the route of trying to create what doesn't exist, because everybody's trying to recreate the wheel. Everybody's trying to redo what's been done. I would like to say I'm the first person to be able to do this, right? And so, or at least take something that people didn't know about and take it to the next level. Anyway, everybody at the time were doing YouTube. They were doing
Right.
YouTube sneaker reviews, and we actually did that too. But it wasn't. It was just, it's just kind of like a crowded room. You're trying to, like, it's like when you get in an elevator and you're trying to add that one extra person in there, right? And it's just like I didn't want to do that, right? Like I didn't want to just be one of a million. I wanted to be one of one, and so there was another podcast before us, but it wasn't. I feel like the early people that did the podcasting didn't know. They just saw an avenue, but they didn't know where it would take them, or they didn't see
The potential.
So they were just doing it. And so we were the first ones to kind of see it as a way to. Honestly, we didn't see the end game.
Yeah.
But we definitely saw it as a vehicle for something bigger. And so.
How important is it to have like that niche? How important is it to, like you say, fill a void in the marketplace?
Right, absolutely.
I think it's important. I think, first of all, it's so cliche to say, but you do what you love. Like, you really have to love what you do, because a lot of times when people do stuff for the money or for any other reason outside of love, when you don't get it, when you don't get what you want, like as far as the feedback or the money or whatever,
Right.
when you don't get it in the fashion that you want it or as quickly as you want it,
Right.
you fall off, and then you stop doing it. And it's almost like marrying somebody for the money. Like, after a while, after so many arguments, like the money
check don't look quite as
exactly. Like, it's like, and then you could divorce and get half. So it's kind of like, I'm out. But when you do something for the love, you stick around, and through the, like, to use the relationship analogy, is you stick through the arguments, you work through them, and the good times and the bad times. And
Now we're going to get into pod fading, but based on that, but I do have a question when you're going down that road.
Yes.
How long have you been podcasting?
Just under 3 years. It'll be 3 years in November.
Now, with the 3 years, and I've known you for over 2.
Right.
When did things change for you? When did things kind of, as they say in the hood, blow up?
Oh, God.
Oh, you are so corny. When did things blow up? I want to say it started to. I think I was like in episode. We were in the 30s somewhere. Because you got to remember. Okay, let me just say this. Like, podcasting is big now, but when we did it, it was still kind of up and coming. Like, not everybody was doing it. And so when we were doing it, we started in the basement. We started in my friend's basement.
Pioneers.
Yes. And I gotta say this, because this is so funny, because we have so many missing episodes. We would probably be 11 episodes ahead of where we are right now had those episodes not disappeared or been recorded better. But when I first started, it was just a laptop. And I had the microphone. I'm thinking, okay, cool. That's it, right? Just a microphone, laptop with a microphone, good. Built into the microphone.
Right. Oh, my God.
So me and my co-host at the time, we're doing it, and so I'm excited because went smoothly. I get back and I listen to it. You can hear me. You cannot hear him.
Wow.
It was just picking up my voice. So I go get microphones, and I plug them in USB through my laptop. Same thing. So I'm like, man. So I do some more research, and so I figure out that I get a mix board, and then plug the microphones into the mix board and into the laptop, and then you had to download the program. So then it was off to the races. But even then, having to learn how to use a mix board and changing the different volume levels for the microphone and ambient noise and all that other stuff. Because a lot of our older episodes, you can hear like the air conditioning unit in the background, things like that.
And I'm glad you're going there because you're going from a real traditional podcaster's perspective because now you're in the studio.
Yeah, we're in the studio. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
Why did you go to a studio?
Okay, well, it's a number of reasons why I went. One, trying to work the mix board and host a show is distracting, right? Because you're
That's
constantly...
got to be crazy. You're at the board.
Because you're trying to focus on two things at once.
Right.
And as a host, you got to be able to control the show, the tempo.
Right.
You got to be able to read the room as far as where the conversation is going, if it's going off kilter, or if you got to just call an audible and just change course, whatever the case. And then two, you also have to, as a host, listen. You have to record the show and listen to it as you're doing it as a listener.
Right.
Because what you think is cool is not necessarily cool to the people listening.
Right.
And so, or what seems bizarre, like real quick, I did something in the studio. I remember the first time I did it, I remember everybody in the room was just like, what are you doing? Like, why? Because I just knew.
Daryl does that all the time.
Yeah, but I knew audio-wise, people listening to it are going to laugh. But, but if you're there, it's like, why are you saying, because it's this guy who goes by Benjamin Kicks, and he spelled it with a Z, and he thought he was so edgy for spelling kicks with a Z, right? And I just thought that was like so stupid, right? So I just so every time I mention him, I would go through the process of saying Benjamin Kicks with a Z, like every time. And we mentioned his name, and I would mention his name on purpose instead of saying he went to the store. Benjamin Kicks with a Z went to the store, and it was just like redundant, and people listening to it loved it and thought it was hilarious. But at the time we were doing it in the studio, people were just like, "That is why?" Right? So just like I said, listening to the show as you're doing it as a listener, but just going through the whole process of trying
you found that you could be more creative with having to take that element out.
Yeah, like I thought, like it allowed me to. You're wearing too many hats, and so if I could take off one of these hats and focus solely on the show as far as hosting it, the show is better, right? And at the same time, there was a bigger blog that called themselves trying to do a podcast. And no offense, but these are two like corny older Jewish dudes that they had no edge, but they were trying to be edgy and they're trying to be urban, and it was just like it just didn't work, right? And
so you're saying be authentic, be who you are.
Be who you are, don't if you're not from the hood, don't try to be hood. And so they were trying to be urban. That's the
I'm
PC.
down with that. I'm down with that.
Yeah, we're not gonna let you get there.
Very hip.
Daryl, no.
So they were, but the thing of it was though, see, competition breeds innovation.
Right.
So they were our competition, and so they had a studio. They had more resources than we did.
Oh yeah.
So they had a studio, and they had the ability to have people call in. So I was like, yo, bump this.
So format-wise, your show is a call-in show as well as...
Now
okay.
it is.
Yeah.
Initially, it didn't start off as that. It was just like us talking about sneakers. It really didn't have any format to it. It was just, we would just kind of take the topics of the week and just kind of just spitball. Like we didn't have a set list or anything. Only thing that I had on paper was like the upcoming sneaker releases for the upcoming week. That was it.
Okay.
And so we would just spitball for an hour. And as we went, I quickly learned that spitballing only going to get you so far, because at a point you become rehashing the same old things over and over again. And you got to be able to plan out your show. You ain't got to have a script. Right. But to have bullet points or a set list definitely helps. And with my experience, I used to hang out with the #1 morning radio show in Detroit. Mm-hmm. I learned a lot of things from them. And so creating segments was one of the things that I thought of, because one, it allowed us to break up the show. Mm-hmm. And then we could have like a rotation that, we wouldn't use every segment every show.
And incorporate your sponsors and all that type of stuff.
Exactly. It's so easy to incorporate the sponsor, because now you can say such and such segment brought to you by so-and-so.
I like that.
Now, just to interrupt you for a sec, going to the studio, I'm going to bring this, make this a little personal.
Yes.
You were one of the three that was a reference for basically creating the Full Circle podcast show.
Right.
And I wanted to say this earlier. I appreciate you availing your time because I know you're doing a lot of things and you're traveling. But I appreciate the fact that you took me to your studio first.
Yeah.
You were on the first episode of the Full Circle podcast show.
That's
You
right.
insisted, matter of fact, that you be the first. You said you want to bust that podcast cherry or however you worded
I
it.
wanted to be. I wanted to be on an inaugural show. I wanted to. Yeah, I did.
And
I did want to
we
bust y'all
sincerely
cherry.
appreciate that. And then when I saw your studio, then I talked to Carmen, and then we got the studio here.
Right.
Yeah.
Real
So-
quick, like I don't remember saying it, but it does sound like something I would say.
Yeah, I wrote it down. You know me, I'm pretty organized.
He
I wrote it
did.
down.
He wrote it down.
You know.
Oh my gosh.
And then, not just that, but you ended up hosting several shows with us here.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
And that was, I'll say this, that was
was
a
so
great
fun.
bridge and a lot of fun because it helped us to grow our, banter,
Yeah.
our format. And that's the kind of thing that we're looking to share here at the conference with
Right.
people is how to, take that professionalism to the next level. So for you, what would you say is the most important thing that you've learned over the time you've been podcasting, and where has podcasting taken you?
The most important thing about podcasting is not to overthink it. I think too many times people have this thought, right? Like, here's a specific formula, and you gotta follow this formula, and that's complete. Can I just pit off? Like, it's complete bullshit. Like, if honestly, like, and this is no offense to anybody at the conference, but if anybody tells you this is what you have to do to have a successful podcast, don't listen. Like, honestly, because not everything, like, there's structure to things, but not all things are created equal. Like, some people get away with doing this because they just have the talent or the personality to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, some people can get away with murder just because they have a friendly disposition. Like, they just cool and nobody, like, not all things work for everybody.
Right.
And so it depends on who you are and where you're at and the timing. So I would just tell people, find yourself. Like, I guess the thing I've learned was find out who we were. Like, I remember our web developer or our web guy for Sneaker Bar Detroit, when we first started doing it, you gotta do an hour show. Nobody's gonna listen to it. Nobody's gonna get past 12 episodes. Yada yada. Had I listened to him, I don't know where we would be, right? Mm-hmm. But I listened to myself. I'm like, look, I'm not looking to follow a formula. I'm trying to. Once again, you're trying to pave a new road.
Right.
You're not
right.
trying to ride on somebody else's. Right?
Exactly.
So when you paving a new road, you're gonna gotta cut down some trees. You're gonna you might make the wrong turn, but you learn that lesson, and then you're able to get back in the right direction. So just kind of follow yourself. Everybody has an innate GPS system in their soul where you know which direction you're supposed to go. You just feel it, right? So we tinker with a lot of things, and I just wanted to find myself. I didn't want to follow a format. I wanted to find a way for us to be unique.
Now you said some words, we, us.
Mm-hmm.
So you podcast with a group.
Yes.
And you and I, we talk a lot, and we have had some conversations about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
Now, with you being in a group, and I looked at your examples, and I like to look at myself as a people person. However, I'm not perfect. So when it came to being with Awid and Carmen, I used you as a reference. Mm-hmm. To, okay, this is the problem that he had. How can I avoid that? And how can we work together as a team? Carmen, she's the ride or die. I mean, she's been here through. Carmen has her attendance record is longer than anybody on the Full Circle podcast.
Well, no,
show.
I have my days, but
And I appreciate it. I appreciate it, dear.
Honestly, I wish I had a Carmen on my show.
Now, we're basically speaking of the challenges of podcasting with the group, and then I would like to get into pod fading. But what are the challenges, without naming names and things like that? What are the challenges of podcasting with the group?
Okay.
First thing is, vision. Like, not every. Okay, so depending on who started the podcast, right? You have a vision. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So now it's a process of trying to get other people to see that vision in the way that you see it.
Right.
In the process that you see it. and to get them on board, because not your vision is not everybody else's vision,
Right.
And so,
and some people may be using the podcast for a vehicle for
exactly.
their own gain.
Everybody
or
has their own agenda.
Exactly.
So,
Can't deal with you, Darryl.
so I mean, so for me, like I've had a lot of people come on the show, and I've had to get rid of a lot of people, and so like initially it was like, oh man, I'm just happy to have people here, and oh shucks, like I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but then it just got to the point where like, look, I'm trying to get here.
Right.
And if you're not down for that, then you can bounce. Like I'm not here to force anybody to go ride with me. If you don't want to be here, bounce. And it's like I got somewhere to go, I got something to do, and I'm not here to argue with you. This is my show. Like at some point, I mean, I don't walk around with that
hierarchy of the
exactly
show.
because you heard me talk. Like I say we a lot, and I say so. I'm not just talking about myself. However, it is my show, and it's like if I say we're doing this, we are doing that. If I feel it in my heart that this is the right direction to go, I'm not. This is not a discussion.
Okay.
Like this is where we're going, and you can either be down with it or you can help find a way to execute whatever it is that we're trying to do or that I'm trying to do. So.
Now, in terms of the input from the other members of the cast, how much input? How much do you?
You always gotta listen. You always gotta listen because I know. What's that line from Michael Jackson? Like I don't know everything.
Can you
but that's
please
something I do
not
know.
use any Michael Jackson?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's from Let Me Show You the Way to Go.
Right.
And so like I know I don't know everything, and so, but you gotta keep yourself open because that's how you. It's funny how you do stuff organically and you don't have any thought about it, and it turns out to be like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has happened on our show, and that's only because I've allowed myself to remain open to other input, and because sometimes you could be like it's like playing in a basketball game or any game. Like you're on the field, and so. You're in the midst of it, and so sometimes it's hard for you to have an outside point of view, and that's why you're a coach, and other people are around you to kind of help guide you to be successful. And so surrounding myself with people, like-minded people who are as passionate about sneakers as I am, and who have good hearts, and who are down to work and put in the work. That helps out a lot. And so a lot of times we'll come up with ideas and some of them fail, which is fine. Like, I mean, I think
You told me straight
tried.
up. You said, look, every show is not going to be a home run.
No.
Right.
I never
We've had
forgot
shows that honestly, this is shows I hate. Honestly, if I could just remove them from our archives, I would. But it's funny how that works though, because like there's one show in particular I remember I couldn't stand it. I could not wait to be done. I was just like, I threw my headphones off and I was like,
I've had those.
I'm like, that sucks so much ass. And then I'll get a message from somebody like,
And that
oh
was
man,
their
yeah, they
favorite show.
loved it. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Oh my god. But it kind of feeds an ego because it's kind of like, well, if that you love
like that.
Well, sometimes people, when you get to a point where people just like you, okay,
Yeah.
so they're tuning in for you,
Right.
Yeah.
but it takes time for that. I remember when we would get the numbers, I would call Carmen or text her, so and so, like it's not going as strong as the other one, and she said, this is a what do you call it when it's not a marathon, it's
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
right,
Yeah.
and sometimes I lean on her, she comes up with topics just as well as I do. We work well together on
yes,
that.
you gotta have a team.
Yeah.
You know what I tell you though? I gotta tell you this. I'm gonna say it again because I want people to hear it. Is when you're doing a podcast, it don't matter if you're doing it on sports and politics. People are tuning in to hear you, like you just said. They're tuning in to hear you, your opinion, your take on it, whatever. People are drawn to personalities.
Yeah.
Right. Like for every city, right? Like so in Detroit, we got 2, 4, and 7, right? And they all tell you the same thing. Somebody got shot somewhere, right? Like that's
That's all they
They're
tell
all
you.
telling you the same news, but yet you tune in to a specific
You have your favorite.
channel because
Yeah.
you want to hear it from this particular news anchor, right? And
Yeah.
so that's the thing about the show. And like with you guys' show, like this is why I tell him not to have so many interviews because it's like, yo, they tune in to see you, not the villain of the week.
Maybe now we can do that. I agree with that.
It's like
I
Scooby
agree
Doo.
with that.
It's like every week. It's like the Harlem Globetrotters come through, Batman and Robin.
You also said you are also anti bi-weekly show, but realizing
am
the
too.
schedule that Carmen has,
I don't hear about it. Listen,
Dude.
There's no way
You are not
there's
gonna-
no way we would do a
no,
weekly
no,
show.
You have to tell us
Look,
about your
schedules.
schedule. Tell us
I
about
do not want to hear about schedules.
where has
I
podcasting taken you as
listen.
far as the travel and all that. Talk about that.
It is such a, I mean, it's like a self-perpetuating thing now because I can't stop if I wanted to. Like, really, like, so first of all, I have a real job, right? Like, it's 6 days a week, right? Then I have a family, a wife and daughter. So that's enough, right, for most people. Then I write and do a lot of stuff for Sneaker Bar Detroit. You know, so like, I mean, just the other morning, I was on the phone with 2 museums trying to organize a sneaker exhibit.
Right.
And I was, it's a process. Then I got the podcast. So like, not only do I have to like
It's juggling.
plan for each week's show, but then I got meetings with sponsors, and now we're traveling. We're going to different cities each month, so that's another thing. And
Have you traveled internationally?
yes, I went to, man, it's so crazy. I went to London, England. Like it's surreal to me even now, like thinking about it, because I'm like sneakers.
It's a worldwide phenomenon.
That is
Well, it's
crazy
just-
because
it's- I
mean,
Carmen
and
and I,
that's-
we've been invited to London, Ohio. I mean, that is
You
just
know
so
what?
crazy.
Okay.
They're
Okay.
literally the same. I know.
Okay.
I know. I would have been just as honored going to Ohio. No, it was such a surreal thing. Like, it was just like, what? I mean, not only to go to London, but to have it paid for. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
your sponsors like, all right, here's your tickets, here's your hotel, and let us know if you need anything. It's like, so not only am I having an opportunity to go to London, but you guys are taking care of me as well.
Absolutely.
Like, come
so
on, man.
podcasting is opening doors.
Yeah, real quick, I gotta say this because it was so dope. So they took us to this one place called Harrods, and it's like this huge department store. It's like Macy's, but like
On
times
steroids.
10. Yes. And so anyway, we walked through this one part with all the books and stuff. They had this book about as big as this table. It was like this big, right? Like that's huge in London or in the UK. It's like oversized books.
Yeah.
Right. And it was like this big, and then they had like smaller ones were still bigger than your regular size book, but smaller than that because that book was like $10,000.
Oh my gosh.
This other book was like 500 or something. Anyway, like I just said I liked it, like because they kind of shown us around the city.
Right.
And so I get back home and like maybe like a week later I get something in the mail, this heavy box. I'm like, what is this?
It's
And
the book.
It's the
Are
book.
you
And I'm like, you
serious?
Like, that's crazy.
Wow.
Like, thank you.
Oh my God.
But I mean, they appreciate me. Like the one thing that I can say, at least with my sponsor, is my main sponsor, is that it's like a family. Because there's other bigger names, personalities under the roster. However, they treat everybody like family, treat everybody the same, and they see the potential. Like they basically, when we first signed with them, his exact words were, "We want to be the reason you're successful."
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that
That's cool.
you to have that. That's another place where we should be talking about further along in the conference about the sponsorships and things like that. We want to thank you so much because
Yeah.
this conversation is so necessary and inspiring. Everybody, Sneaker Box, tune in.
Thank
Is
you.
there anything else? Any other advice that you would give an up and coming?
Well,
podcast?
I
Yeah,
really,
you remember because we had talked about the 3 Ps.
well, I really, yeah.
What
but
are
the
that?
3 Ps.
What is that?
It is patience, practice, persistence. Because I once again, I know somebody's gonna tell you, because I have the same thing right now. Like you gotta do an hour show. Because if you go over that, you're gonna lose people's attention. Well, that's the beauty about podcasting. Like with radio shows, is you have to listen to the whole 4 hours, otherwise you're gonna miss something. But podcasting, or like any other thing that you can download and listen to, you can listen to a part of it, pause it, come back to it.
Right.
You know, and depending on how often you do a podcast, like we do a weekly one, so you got all week to listen to 2 hours of content. So it's not really that much. But try not to get overwhelmed with structure. What I would tell people if they're starting off doing a podcast, forget structure. Just go in there, just have like whatever it is that you're trying to touch on, like sports, politics, whatever. If you're doing a sports show, go in there with your topics, right? And just spitball it and just keep going if you're starting. And then over time, what's going to happen is you're going to develop a rapport with the people you're around with. And then you're going to say or do something organically that's going, hey, that's something.
Exactly.
And then over time, you're going to create like segments or parts of the show without having to sit there and like really think, you know, man, I got to do it this way. I got to do it this way. Because it's not one size fits all. And I mean, if you're trying to be different, you're trying to be unique, following somebody else's blueprint is not making you unique. It's just making you like them.
Wow.
And so I would say just start off doing whatever it is. Just throw paint all over the wall. Right? Just go crazy. Like seriously, go crazy because you're gonna come across something eventually. Or you just suck and you're not gonna do anything after that. Like really,
we don't want you to suck. Listen, we really don't.
Like not every podcast is gonna be successful. Like I do have to say that. Like 'cause
Okay.
I've seen this happen many times where people think I'm entertaining enough. I'm gonna start a podcast. And it's like no, you're not. And they'll start a podcast.
What's the cutoff? What did you tell me was if you make it past so many
Honestly,
episodes?
when we first started, it was like 12, 15. Like now, I think it's like 30, where you can say you're better than the majority of like podcasts.
Because I thought you said something about 11. Like you guys had made it.
Yeah, people
longer
told
than-
us sneakers were too niche.
Wow.
Nobody wants to. I remember when we first got our studio, and I walked in there, and at the time the studio was like booked, right? And so he was kind of carving out space for us as it is to meet with us. And so I told him what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to do a 2-hour sneaker show every week. He was like, what? Like I remember he was because as I was talking to him, he was mixing, and I remember I told him the show, and he stopped like, what are you talking about?
And I know you, and I'm kind of like looking at you like that now.
Yeah, he's just like, what? And so he was more. He more wanted to see this car crash more so than he had faith in it.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so I remember when we did the first show, and he just walked in there like, that was brilliant. Like he just didn't know
what it could be.
Yeah. And so now I remember he bumped us for somebody else, and they got mad and went to another studio, but bump him. So, and so like we're his favorite show. Now he's working as our manager, and he's like helping us fill contracts.
That's pretty awesome.
And offers, and so we got a couple of offers right now that we're still trying to finalize, and that we're working out with. Got other sponsors lining up. Potentially might go to radio. It's a lot of things that are happening, but patience, right? Because we've been doing this for 3 years, and to be honest, there were times where I wanted to like stop and quit, but like I kept going for whatever reason, and now we're here. So patience, practice, because you got to hone your skills as a host. I'm not telling you how to be a host, but just hone your skills. Learn how to read a conversation, be a part of the conversation while being able to mentally step away enough from it to where you can kind of direct it and lead it and see where it's going. Remember, like, do the show listen to the show as a listener as you're recording. And then persistence, just got to be that, and being consistent, like just bam, bam, bam. Like, because I remember I was gone for like 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, we was rolling too. And I lost some downloads, and it was like, man. And so that was the first time I was like, man, I got to be consistent. So every week we're popping them out.
There you go.
And so now, it's been some weeks we missed. So now we got so many shows under our belt. We're talking about just starting to create best ofs.
Oh,
just
wow.
kind of putting together a
Like a
collages
little
of multiple episodes, starting with the beginning. So that way, if we do take a week off, they have something.
Content.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank
yeah,
you
I think that's
again.
good.
This is awesome.
That's it. It's nothing. Was pod fading. It's funny because I've been doing podcasting for like 3 years, and every time somebody says pod fading, I'm like, what? Like I don't even know all the terminologies. Like
we gotta wrap this part up. But
okay.
I'll tell you what, we will be discussing that along
that
with
definitely
others,
will be on the conference.
other subjects along with this in our conference. And we want to thank you. Tell everybody where they can hear the show.
All right. So the Sneaker Box podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play. Matter of fact, we were Google Play's podcast of the week earlier this year, which was dope. Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Podcast Addict. Anywhere you can listen to a podcast, you can find our show. You can also find it on sneakerbardetroit.com. You can find it on Sneaker Bar Detroit's YouTube channel, where we record live through YouTube. I'm not really a big fan of the whole video aspect because I do think there's something to the theater of the mind.
Okay.
But we do it despite my best efforts to derail it.
I think we record simply because my facial expressions.
And my mother likes to see my face.
No, it works. Nobody wants to see her face, but no, it works for some people. I prefer not to, but it is.
I like that.
Wow.
It is what it is. But that's where you can find our show. Like I said, we travel a lot. I'll be in Atlanta the weekend of this conference, which is why I couldn't be there physically. And then I'll be in Toronto a couple weeks after that, then Memphis, then Vegas, then New
Wow.
York. So it's
Well, please, we want to thank you,
Thank you.
for the interview and
Right.
availing your schedule. Hopefully, the next time, it depends because we're busy too. We're traveling
I mean,
around.
you got to go to London, Ohio. Like,
We have a lot of stuff going on, but I hope
Get your
that,
passport.
Caesar,
Right.
ladies
Passport
and
for
gentlemen
Ohio.
of Sneaker Box.
But everybody, I hope you're having a good time at the conference and
Right.
Full Circle Podcast Show and the Sneaker Box Podcast. Have a good day.